From WXXI News, this is Connections. I'm Evan-Dawson. Our connection for this hour was made in 2013 when a company named Edgewater Resources submitted a proposal to reshape the look down at Shalott, the Port of Rochester. Their proposal called, eventually, for a 10-story building with a 69-room hotel, several dozen condos, shops, at least one restaurant, even a spa. And that was just the start. This building could be the seed to spark even bigger plans at the port. Now, some business owners, some residents celebrated the plan, saying they've waited to see the city make better use of a tremendous asset. Many residents strongly opposed it, saying it was a poor fit, poorly conceived, and that the city should do something else and do it much better. Well, now the city will have an opportunity to do something else, because yesterday the city surprised many observers by announcing the deal with Edgewater is off. Mayor Lovely Warren said Edgewater failed to meet a deadline to show that it had the money needed to proceed. According to City Hall, Edgewater had asked for another 9 months to secure the finances, and the city has said no. So what's next for the port? Should the city pursue a similar building and development plan, or is it time to consider something else entirely? Let me welcome our guests in studio. Marianne Warfel is here. She's the president of the Port of Shalott Merchants Association and general manager of the Port of Rochester Marina. Marianne, welcome to you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, Evan. It's a pleasure.
Bill Brown's here. He's the systems analyst for TSM Solutions. He's a member of Shalott Strong. That's a group that has opposed the port development plan. Bill, welcome to you.
Thank you. You too.
Well, and thanks to both of you for being here, because I know at times you're going to disagree. That's okay. Our callers may disagree on certain aspects here, and that's okay, because I think there are a lot of questions on what happens going forward. But before we have that conversation in studio, I want to welcome a guest via phone. I will mention that we reached out to the City of Rochester administration, Lovely Warren's administration, yesterday afternoon. They had indicated they would get back to us. Didn't know if they could get someone, but they'd let us know. We never heard back, so we don't have anyone from the city administration, but we do have City Council member Molly Clifford from the Northwest District. She's on the line with us now. Molly, thank you for taking the time. How are you?
I'm great, Evan. Thanks for having me.
Molly, can you walk me through what you saw happening this week? Because part of the surprise came not just from the fact that the deal was off, that was surprising enough, but from the fact that, according to David Riley of the Democrat and Chronicle and others, that on Wednesday, a lot of people were asking about, well, this deadline's coming up for Edgewater. David Riley was asking, others were asking, and that according to David Riley, the city communications department got back on Wednesday and said that that they needed some time to review, and that they said that there was information that they had to take a look at that had been submitted, and that Thursday they got back saying, well, apparently there was nothing to review. They just had a request for more time, and that David Riley saying that the City Hall is now chalking that up to a communications error, that they weren't intentionally deceiving anyone. They simply made a mistake with how they communicated with the public about that there was nothing submitted, even though they said earlier this week there was stuff to review. So what did you know? What did you see happening this week?
Honestly, I was a little confused myself. I did send an email to Commissioner Mohammed on Tuesday, basically saying the same thing. The deadline's coming up. What are we hearing? And he responded that their plans were still under review and that there were no red flags, which didn't give me a whole lot of information. But I certainly did think that it sounded like things were progressing, which actually led me to send an email to my council colleagues on Wednesday evening, in which I said that I thought this project had really come to an end and that we ought to rip off the Band-Aid.
I saw some people online critical of City Hall saying, you know, by midweek, when you're saying we need some time to review, and then the next day you say there's nothing to review and the deal's off, that they felt there was something deceptive there. Should that bother us, or do you think that was a simple communications error, Molly?
I really can't speak to that, though I do think we should probably get an answer, because it was confusing, and I don't think it sends the right message about a project which, unfortunately, had already created enough controversy.
Well, in this case, is this just a case of the developer didn't have the money, never had the money all along?
You know, that's what appears to be true from my end. You know, we obviously had some communication issues and some controversy all along the way, but the bottom line was, you know, he had put in an amended proposal that was double the cost of the original one, and it did lead one to believe that if you couldn't get the $21 million, how are you going to get the $42? So I do think the bottom line, that was the decision at the end.
And let me go ahead and read a statement from Greg Waycamp from Edgewater Resources. This is the guy. This is the group that had put the proposal forward. And it sounds like they're essentially giving up. This is the full statement from Edgewater Resources. Quote, "From the day our team was selected as the developer for Parcel 1 at the Port of Rochester, we have worked diligently with the city and community to craft a project that would achieve the goals and vision outlined in the RFP and city planning documents. While completion of funding took longer than we originally anticipated, and we are disappointed to learn of the city's decision to release a new RFP for the development of the Parcel 1 site, we respect the city's decision. We would like to express our deep appreciation to everyone in the community who worked with us to make the project one we would be proud of, as well as our firm belief in a bright future for Charlotte. We'll have no further comment until we've had time to review the city's formal decision. Thank you, Greg Waycamp." But when he says they're going to respect the city's decision, it doesn't sound like there's going to be a challenge from Edgewater. It does sound like it's over with them. It's starting over. So what are the questions you have, Molly? What do you want to see happen next there?
Well, there's a couple of things. One, I think that unanimously, people in Charlotte, whether they're business owners, residents, whatever, do want to see some kind of development at that site. It is just a question of what it looks like and what the scale and size of it is. Charlotte is a great community. There's a lot going on. I know Marianne will talk about the port itself. The marina looks fantastic, and we're getting a ton of interest there. So let's really use that as a catalyst to get the right kind of project where people can mostly agree. I don't think we're ever going to agree 100%, but something that can really support the residents, really support the businesses, and continue to be an attraction for people in the Rochester area and beyond.
Molly, I think you're right. I mean, you're not going to get everyone to say whatever the decision is going forward, everyone's going to be perfectly happy. That's certainly true. And in this case, City Hall did tell the Democrat and Chronicle that they are listening, that no matter what happens going forward, there will be public input. They're going to seek new proposals to develop the port. Public input will be included. And Mayor Warren in her statement said, quote, "Let there be no doubt. We have taken the input we have received on this important jobs-creating project seriously, and we have held this developer accountable." Do you agree with that position?
Overall, I guess I do. I think we could have done a lot more along the way with YCAMP, maybe come to this decision a little differently. But I'm glad, and I will take it in good faith, that she really wants to have a good, open, constructive discussion with the community. And I think we can all just look at this going forward and hopefully come out with a good project at the other end.
All right. Before I let you go, then, Councilmember Clifford, I don't want to oversimplify where the discussion goes next, but a lot of the concern we heard from Charlotte Strong, and I know Bill's going to get a lot more detailed, all the way down to the soil. That's what Bill does. But besides that, one of the concerns we hear most often with people down there is, is this the place for a big building or not? Should development look different? Should there be something tall and sort of proud and stentorian in stature and voice and attract more retail and development? Or is it a place for something a little smaller, a little more measured on the skyline, on the shoreline? What do you expect down there? What do you want?
Well, this is my personal opinion. I would like to see something smaller, something that fits in with Charlotte as it currently exists, and something that won't take away from the shoreline. But if there's a good project and maybe it's a little higher than what I would like, I'm certainly open to that. But I think what's really important is that we recognize that Charlotte is such an asset. The port is such an asset that we really have a project that plays off of that. So the size, to me, I would rather see something smaller, but it's not as big of an issue as that it's something that really fits in and looks great down there.
Okay, so it sounds to me, Councilmember Clifford, like you view what happened yesterday and you view the developments of this week as overall a good thing, because maybe this wasn't the right developer and maybe this wasn't going to work out. But it sounds like you still have some questions about how things unfolded and how the public understood it.
I think that is true. And again, I think if we all come out of this with some valuable learning experience, that's what we should take away. And from the very beginning, if we can try and get as much consensus as we can about the project going forward, I will absolutely support what comes out on the other side.
Soon, Molly.
That sounds good. Thanks for having me. And I encourage everyone to come down to Charlotte this summer and check out that marina.
All right, very good. Well, there's no question on the marina, so that's Molly Clifford. Thank you, Molly. Let me turn now in studio to our guests here, and they include Marianne Warfel, who's the president of the Port of Charlotte Merchants Association and general manager of the Port of Rochester Marina. Bill Brown is with the group called Charlotte Strong that has opposed the port development plan. Marianne, were you surprised yesterday?
Yeah, actually, I was surprised, a little bit disappointed, to be honest with you. I think what maybe some people don't realize is that Edgewater is the one that did the engineering and development of the marina, which is, of course, something I'm extremely proud of. The reaction from the community and everybody that's come by boat or as a pedestrian walking around that marina is, wow, this is amazing development. It's really beautiful. And so, again, I know Greg Wycamp well, and I'm disappointed, honestly, that there's going to be obviously a significant delay in further development.
Some people heard this news yesterday, Marianne, and they thought there's something we don't know here. I mean, how would they pull the plug, particularly if he's got at least some kind of a track record and a relationship down there, as you say. But his statement, you know, it's a brief statement in which he says, we respect the city's decision. He doesn't say we're going to fight it, we think it's incorrect, the money is coming. Did you expect him to fight it a little bit more, and do you think he still could?
You know what? I actually don't know. Again,
Okay.
Evan, I was surprised about the decision. I actually know that Greg was here probably a couple weeks ago and did kind of an open house to the community and was very encouraging and very open about the plans moving forward and the floor plans of the condos and exactly how the schedule of the construction was going to go. So to me, that was a very good indication that everything was moving forward. And so to answer your question, yeah, I was a little surprised that he was that far into it 2 weeks ago, and we learned yesterday that, you know, the financing isn't there.
Okay, and just as Marianne can't be here representing every single business person. Everyone's got a different point of view. Bill doesn't represent every resident or every person down there. But I think in many ways, you help represent the kinds of voices we've been hearing on both sides of this, to the extent that there are two clean sides, and that's never really the case here or elsewhere. But I will just ask you, Marianne, in general now, what do you want to see there in light of the fact that you've got this marina momentum, and now you've got a big question mark back at the port? On the business side, are you concerned about what this does to business, and what do you want to see next?
Yeah, I am a little bit concerned. I know that there's been some new businesses that are moving into the port terminal building, and a lot of that, I think, they were encouraged by, obviously, the marina and also the continuation of further development. And I'm hoping that with this news, it doesn't stall that. You're right, I can't sit here and represent all the businesses that are part of the Merchants Association. However, many of them were very, very supportive and encouraged by this development and positive focus from the city on this development. You know, that hasn't been the case all along. So it was just encouraging to see the city investing and making good decisions, what I feel were good decisions regarding the marina. They've opened up the port terminal building and made it more public access. They've created like a walkway down there so you can walk in front of the port terminal building. And so instead of taking away public access over this marina development, it's actually provided more public access. There's more people coming down there and biking and walking their dogs and using the park than ever. So, you know, I'm hoping that focus continues.
Listeners, we want to hear from you. Now that this plan for Edgewater is off down in Charlotte, what do you want to see there? What makes sense to you? What's the best kind of development going forward? It's 844-295-TALK. It's toll free, 844-295-8255 or 263-WXXI if you're in Rochester, 263-9994. Now, Bill Brown, I suspect you celebrated the news yesterday, but did you expect it or were you surprised to hear it?
I expected it.
You did?
I did. I did because people kept asking me about the EB-5 funding, which was always a key part of his funding program. And talking to people from the state of New York who are involved with following and controlling EB-5 funding, they said there's no likelihood that the area around the port area would qualify from an unemployment rate basis for EB-5 funding. There's condition that it has to be 1.5 times the national average unemployment rate, which would end up to be about 8% right now. And it has to be the census tracts right around there. And there's no way that you're going to find an 8% unemployment rate in that area right around the marina.
So you never thought he was going to be able to get the money?
He was not going to get EB-5 funding. And then when he came out with $40 million as a projected cost, and I worked through the numbers from the standpoint of you have so many condos and you have so many hotel rooms, and there was an excellent article last year talking about the average cost of a hotel room and average occupancy. All that information added up to a big hole in terms of trying to pay for that $40 million. All
right, Bill, so I don't want you to give us a full geological soil lesson, but I do want you to remind our listeners, generally speaking, why you and a lot of people in Charlotte Strong have opposed this particular project.
I guess there's two parts of it. There's a whole lot of people in Charlotte Strong who really don't want to see very tall buildings built along Lake Avenue, making it basically a wall to the river and the lake area. And now the marina area. You wouldn't really be able to see the marina coming down the street, Lake Avenue. That's one position. My concern from the beginning, especially when Pike Construction walked away from it and nobody got sued over that, and it was an $18 million project, there had to be something else. And when I started doing the research, I found that area where they'd like to build has a lot of problems with it. It has debris. It has very soft soils, which means if they're going to build a 10-story building, they have to not only go to bedrock, but they may have to drill into bedrock. And then the other thing is the water conditions. The water table is very high, and with the marina right next to the area they were going to construct now, the water table has been, or the water has been brought to the construction area, which would have possibly caused the cost of foundation to go sky high. And if you have that, then you can't get your return on your investment.
Yeah, to Bill's point on the size and sort of the building up, Marion, I've heard some people who want essentially kind of green space and they don't want development. Others say, I want development, more like what Molly Clifford said. They think it makes more sense closer to the ground, not obstructing views. Are you open to those kinds of proposals that are development but not necessarily straight up like that?
Absolutely, and I think that we're going to have hopefully a good response on the RFP the city puts out, because prior it was a development site that was overlooking a big concrete parking lot. But now we have this beautiful marina. We have life coming back to the port terminal building. So I think that there's more to offer some of these developers. And so I'm hoping that we get a better response and more variety of different options as opposed to just a 10-story building. I support having a hotel down there. I know that a lot of the community doesn't think that is going to be a successful year-round endeavor. I actually do. So I'm hoping myself personally that a hotel is still part of whatever development that they do down there.
Okay, Bill, do you get the sense that going forward, Charlotte Strong and residents who have opposed this project, are they going to be split on, some who don't want any development at all, some who want to see different kinds of development than what Edgewater proposed?
I really think the communities from our side, from the Charlotte Strong side, are just as interested in development down at the port as anyone else. It's more of what will it be and where will it be. Closing off the vision of the marina and the river and the lake by having a series of tall buildings right along Lake Avenue is a big negative for them. And there are other alternatives. There are other properties there that could be taken advantage of, including probably the south end of those parcels, which would not obstruct that view.
All right, let me get some phone calls because we've got some folks waiting to weigh in as we talk about what happens going forward in Charlotte. This is Mike in Rochester. Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, I hope my signal is good for you today.
Yeah, you sound good, sir.
All righty, we're getting some rain. Thank God for that.
Yes, that is true.
Listen, I'm going to make a statement, and then I'll hang up, and you can address the statement. Until they get the criminal element under control at Charlotte Picnic Area and Charlotte Beach, a lot of families, including myself with my 3 daughters, we're never going to go down there. I have been down there on 2 occasions in the last 2 years and seen warfare. And I'm talking about you just had 5 people stabbed down there last week. It's a constant, ongoing problem. How do you expect people to come down there, families, and enjoy what you want to accomplish and have that element that is not being addressed by our mayor and our sheriff department, who is in control of the Monroe County Parks, which includes Charlotte Beach. And I'll leave it at that, and I'll listen to your response on the radio.
Mike, thank you. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Mike, thank you so much for the phone call. And, I suspect his point of view is he's not the only one who feels that way. Marianne Warfel, who's the president of the Port of Charlotte Merchants Association, you've probably heard concerns like that. Is that overblowing the problem, or do you share that concern?
I think that there has to be a better focus from our Rochester Police Department on more patrolling down in that area. It seems
it's the same that Marianne has. If there's a feeling of being insecure in terms of going to that area, you're just not going to go.
Transportation to the city, it's one of those things that we have to make this development happen and then put some of those smaller elements in place to support.
It's always going to be essentially dead there.
I'm always or everything, absolutely, probably not. But in terms of people...
The two new businesses that are going into the port terminal building are planning on being open year-round. There's an existing business, California Rollin', that's
so important so we don't just repeat our mistakes. We don't ask for something that will only result in certain kinds of developments that will resemble the good about transparency and genuine efforts to make the port the special place that it is. It's also the development is also not.
Someone says an amphitheater like Syracuse just did on the lake would be nice. Dan says something like Village Gate on the water there. Roger says a bicycle. Best development proposals.
You know what? I think those are all great ideas. I have been paying very close attention to what Buffalo has been doing with their waterfront. I know it includes hotels and spas and things that can be taken advantage of in the wintertime. So,
all right, so let me turn to Bill, because 2 questions on that. Paid parking, she said.
Out the area that's called Charlotte, that makes a lot more sense to me. But to try to pack it all into those 2 small parcels does not.
Lori Lynn, right time to strike and to do more down there with the marina doing well. So let's get right back to your phone calls after this short break. Back to your phone calls about what to do down at the port with this Edgewater deal off. This is Bonnie. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes. I think one of the key minimalists, I would say, would be a good word. I think that is really the core piece. There's, of course, the technical issues that have to be. The strong group really have a good handle on that. So I think they should really have the big place. And I think the more things you put in it, usually the goal is to get higher end things. The more that makes people who don't have a lot of money have the same.
You have to somehow protect that character of Charlotte, and unfortunately, we are limited in the space that we have to work with to develop something from a retail standpoint. And I appreciate that myself. I think the community is pretty darn special, coming from a little bit farther south, down near Holy Sepulchre.
Our lot. So there's like a couple of different messages that I'm hearing out there from the public, and I really think to make improvements to that area and help eliminate some of the...
From a listener who has a comment about the marina and sort of who gets to access it, and I think you're well suited to answer it, and I'm sure you've heard concerns like this before. Marianne?
We have courtesy docking within the basin, and we welcome jet skiers and kayakers and anybody who wants to come in and take advantage. Something really nice for people to come and stroll around and look at. The grounds are beautiful. The landscaping is beautiful. So I actually disagree with that person.
In the current area with more amenities is similar to what happened with the fast ferry. The city brought in the ferry, but there was nothing for people coming in to do once they got here. No easy way for them to get downtown. Come is not always true. What do you think, Marianne?
Again, honestly, Evan, I disagree with that. I think we got to start with, the marina was a big development.
Hold on, Jim, stay there. And let's start with the water and some of the questions he's raised there. Bill, go ahead.
In regards to the water, there's actually a solution to the algae problem. That's been a tremendous amount of research done in regards to that site that they had to pay for. And I do have one comment, I guess, in regards to that. There's been over $2 million.
The other beaches, and, how cool would that to get that back? There's a lot of different ideas, So I agree. I agree that we need more.
Little railroad trolley tracks or train tracks that actually went from Durand Beach all the way over, and actually it extended beyond that. They've taken those out.
Yeah, it's interesting. And thank you for the history lesson there, John.
You're welcome.
The question of, when it comes to whether it's a streetcar, a trolley of some kind, and we've seen some cities, I think all of that probably factors in. At the very least, Bill and Marianne, this looks like a blank canvas, a chance to reset and ask, what are we going to do here?
But it has to be all-encompassing, and it has to respect the area that you're working with. If you're working with a small box, you can only do certain things with that small box. If
the city is going to come back to other developers, they want new proposals, they want more public input, what would be the mistake there?
Well, I think the biggest mistake is to not do anything. And you hear that from hockey teams that play at Lakeshore Hockey Arena. I hear that from a lot of people that there's no place to stay close to Charlotte, and it would be nice